Now, here's a bit of a lesson in history, if you will. When the African Broadcasting Corporation was sold on the 1st of August 1936, on that very day, the South African Broadcasting Corporation was born. Now, through the arrival of television in South Africa in 1976, the expansion of its channels as well as dedicated language radio stations, it has come to shape and inform the lives of South Africans in an indelible manner. Now, there is one day left until the SABC celebrates its 84th year of broadcasting. And joining us via video call now is Gugu Ntuli, SABC Group Executive of Corporate Affairs and Marketing, to break down the significance of this remarkable milestone. Gugu, it's so good to see you. How are you? Last time I saw you, we were sitting side by side in a plane, pre-COVID-19, of course. Gugu, are you there? Can you hear me? Hello, Gugu? Gugu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, there we go. I just had this entire intro where I spoke about our trip on the plane and I was musing beautifully and you didn't even hear that. But anyway, not to worry. Listen, let's talk about the more important thing, the celebration of the SABC's 84th year of existence. Let's go back in history. The primary objective of the SABC when it was established, and when you look back at those days, what did it look like?
Well, Katleho, thank you for having me, and good morning to all the viewers. SABC has obviously evolved over the decades, and when it was first established in 1936, it was established by an act of parliament as a radio service, broadcast service, and it was actually purchased from a private owner. There were 3 existing radio stations. Mm-hmm. That was obviously just pre the war, and as you know that in 1939 the war broke out. So a lot of the broadcasts were also South Africa was supporting the war, the World War II, and quite a lot of the broadcasts were actually propagating the war. In fact, the first broadcasts in African languages, which was Zulu, Xhosa, and I think Sotho, were actually in 1940, in the middle of the war. So post the war, then the radio stations were then established. I think it was 1960 by then that they had African radio stations actually established. But effectively, it emerged as a state-owned broadcaster serving the state.
Yeah. And then over the decades, of course, the SABC has grown to encompass various areas of broadcasting, 5 TV channels, including for news, for sports and education, and 19 radio stations across the country. What would you say are some of the milestones when you look back at all of those achievements, those that you say stand out for you?
Look, I think over a period of 8 decades, you have a lot of achievements, and we certainly have a few. From a radio perspective, you've just mentioned the 19 radio stations, but what is key about these 19 radio stations is that we actually are we account for 72% of the radio market in South Africa, which is fantastic. Yeah. From a TV perspective, we've got our TV stations, we've got SABC News channel, which is the #1 24-hour news channel in the country. And through our content and our programs, I mean, taking us back all the years from when broadcasting television actually began with the villages, all the way to the jam alleys, Yizo Yizo, Stumo, Velapi, all of that kind of content has really actually brought a lot of entertainment to South Africans, but also informed the nation as we moved along. And I think that the basis of this obviously is our mandate, and our mandate of educating, informing, and entertaining.
Yeah. As you mentioned some of those shows, you've just taken me way back to some of the shows that formed my childhood and just played such an important role in you know, who I became as a young adult. And of course, taking it to present day with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, so many things have changed in our lives. How's the SABC reflecting this with what it broadcasts to the people of South Africa?
Katleho, I think that's a very important question. And I think as we all grapple with this pandemic, in a time that is uncertain for many people, it is very, very important that the public broadcaster plays a role of keeping people absolutely informed about factual information, so impartial information that is actually going to be saving lives, and really actually making available all the necessary announcements and developments as they come from our state president and the government in general. So SABC has played a critical role with this. As you have seen, our programming has accommodated all of the press conferences that have been held by the president in various stages, and of course our programming has also changed to ensure that we are providing more educational content to support learners that are actually unable to access education through schools at the moment. One of the things that our SABC News has done exceptionally well is really from the onset, before it even became a big issue in South Africa, when the cases broke in China, etc., they started to broadcast COVID-19. So we have been kept abreast as a public because of the efforts that the SABC has made over this period.
Yeah, and there's also some excitement in there. I understand that SABC recently launched the target operating model, which will allow the reinvention of the broadcaster in essence. Tell me a bit more about that, how it'll work, and hopefully how it'll ensure the next 84 years of the SABC.
Katleho, I think the most important thing to understand here is that the SABC is central to the industry, the creative industry in South Africa. It's central. From a music perspective, our radio stations are playing music from artists, and through that, artists are actually gaining royalties and making a living for themselves. From a television perspective, our production houses are dependent on the content we commission and that we acquire from them. So the SABC's survival and sustainability for many more decades to come is absolutely central to this industry. So the target operating model actually addresses how the organization in a digital age is going to have to transform itself to ensure that it's sustainable for many years to come. And effectively that talks to a number of things. We know that from a governance perspective, we have become much stronger. We are looking at specifically how we acquire digital more digital content as well as digital infrastructure to ensure that in the new dispensation of the digital age, SABC plays a role making sure that our content is accessible to all South Africans everywhere that they are.
And I'm sure that this certainly ignites inspiration and has a certain sense of opportunity that it brings about in the air for all of those who have a passion for this country and want to see it moving forward through the vehicle that is the SABC. Gugu Ntuli, thank you very, very much for joining us this morning, and happy 84th.
Thank you very much.
Now, of course, as the home of SABC3 and the vessel through which we get to connect with you every single day, we can't thank the SABC enough for providing the platform services that it does to ensure that all South Africans are informed, entertained, and educated. And so with that, happy 84 years of shaping people's lives, SABC.